Nastapreshu Badreshu Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati-utamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashiki. Before saying the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, and my rendering service unto the pure devotees, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. In loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs to establish as the irrevocable facts. Alright, so Hare Krishna. Alright, so I'm very sad. It'll be my last class for sooner for a long time. What time are you leaving?
My flight is at 11:50. Afternoon and I will be here in 7-8 o'clock.
Okay. Yeah.
2 hours, 3 hours.
Yeah. Oh, you're going to Phoenix. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll miss you a lot. All right. So, today we're going to be doing Canto 4, Chapter 21, Text 15. Chapters entitled Instructions by Maharaj Prithu. Although we haven't exactly gotten to his instructions yet, today Maharaj Prithu's features are being glorified. And so the verse I have today talks about that. And then this will kind of go on for the next 7 verses or so. So whoever gives class tomorrow, you're not going to have a purport until text 21. But it's an interesting thing to think about the features of the pure devotee, or features of great souls in general. So today we're going to be talking about different types of bodies. All right. Okay, let's see here. Pramsupinya yata bujo Gora kanjarune shanaha Sunashya sumukha somya Pinamsya sudvijasmita Param supinya yata bujo Gora kanjarunekshana Shunasya sumukha somya Pinamsya sudvijasmita Ram supinna yata bujo Gora kanjarunekshana Sunasya sumukha somya Pinamsya sudvijasmita. Please chant.
Ramshu Pinayata Bujo Gura Kanjarunekshanaha Sunasa Sumukha Somya Vinamsa Sudvijasmitaha
Supinayata Bhujo Sudasa Sukha Samya Sa Suduja Smita
Supinayata Bhujo Alright, word for word. From Su, very tall. Bina Adyata, full and broad. Bujaha, arms. Gora, fair complexion. Kanja, lotus-like. Aruna Ikshana, with bright eyes, resembling a morning sunrise. Sunasaha, straight nose. Sumukha, with a beautiful face. Somyaha, a grave bodily stature. Pina Amsaha, shoulders raised. Su, beautiful. Dvija, teeth. Smrita, smiling. Translation. King Prithu's body was tall and sturdy, and his complexion was fair. His arms were full and broad, and his eyes as bright as the rising sun. His nose was straight, his face very beautiful, and his personality grave. His teeth were set beautifully in his smiling face. Please repeat. King Prithu's body was tall and sturdy. And his complexion was fair. His arms were full and broad. And his eyes as bright as the rising sun. His nose was straight. His face very beautiful. And his personality grave. His teeth were set beautifully. In his smiling face. Report by Srila Prabhupada. Amongst the four social orders, Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Sudras, the Kshatriyas, both men and women, are generally very beautiful. As will be apparent from the following verses, it is to be concluded that not only were Maharaj Prithu's bodily features attractive, as described here, but he had specific all-auspicious signs in his bodily construction. As it is said, the face is the index of the mind. One's mental constitution is exhibited by his facial features. The bodily features of a particular person are exhibited in accordance with his past deeds, for according to one's past deeds, his next bodily features, whether in human society, animal society, or demigod society, are determined. This is proof of the transmigration of the soul through different types of bodies. Shri Chaitanya Manavisham Stav Tamina Bhutale Swayam Bhagavami Hantanati Swaparantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Baba Phalam Shri Guru and Vaishnavam Shah Shri Rupam Sagashitam Sakanavaganam Pitam Tam Sachivam Sadvaitam Sadvaputam Krishna Sahitam Krishna Shri Krishna Chaitanya Deva Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahaganava Shri Vishakamitam Shah Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namustate Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanustate Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Pancha Kalpatru Vishya Kripa Sindhu Vicha Patisanam Pate Yo Vaishnavi Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhara Shri Sadakorda Bhakti Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so let's see here. One moment. Trying to pull up something here. Okay, so this verse here, as I previously mentioned, is describing the features of Prithu Maharaj. So Prabhupada said in this purport that amongst the four social orders, the Kshatriyas are generally very beautiful. In general, they have a fair complexion, they have bright eyes. When the artists were painting all the different Kshatriyas in the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada was very particular that they look attractive and that they also, they generally all have a mustache because Kshatriyas have mustaches. And so generally in the Kshatriya order, they're very attractive personalities. So in the Varnashram system, so in the Varnashram system, generally you can tell what order of life one is in by their qualities, the qualities that they've come into, the qualities that they have taken birth with. Also, generally, by how they look, you can also tell what order they're in. This is further described in Hayagriva's book, The Hare Krishna Explosion, the different features of the different orders, but I'm not going to get into that at the moment. But anyway, the main point here is that according to one's mentality, one is preparing their body for their next life. So the body that we have, it's like a vehicle, and our consciousness in general, we're all part and parcel of Krishna. Krishna says here in the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita that the living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmented parts. And due to conditioned life, they're struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. So Krishna himself is Sachin Ananda Vigraha. He's full of all knowledge, all bliss, and he's eternal. And we are part and parcel of that. However, you think of it like a child. A 2-year-old child is also part and parcel of Krishna, but their consciousness is limited, right? When they're in that 2-year-old child body, they have to act like a 2-year-old child. You see that their speech is limited. You notice like we're all able to kind of sit still here. 2-year-old kid, they can't really sit still. They have to get up and run around. And they're in this stage of really I, me, and mine. And so that's kind of like how a 2-year-old child is. And then as the child grows, the child learns more language, the child can communicate more ideas, the intelligence expands. And this happens because the body itself is changing. Prabhupada calls this the change of bodies. The soul passes from boyhood to youth to old age. And but the soul itself actually remains the same. So we're changing bodies. We would say this concept of changing bodies is not so difficult to understand because we're actually, changing bodies all the time. You know, every few years we have a different body than we had when we were younger, and we can comprehend the different things. I remember being 3 years old and my sister asking me, "What is 2 plus 2?" And I remember not knowing. And that concept, like, and that's one of my earliest memories. She was messing around with me because she was like 5 years older. And you know how the older siblings always kind of like to mess around with the younger siblings over like what they know that the younger one doesn't know. So she goes, "Lacey, what's 2 plus 2?" And I'm like, "I don't know, like the concept of 2 plus 2. Like I couldn't even fathom that concept. I can actually distinctly remember that. But now, you know, it's like a no-brainer to me what 2 plus 2 is because my body has changed, so my intellectual like ability to actually like understand that has changed. And so with this said, um, whatever like consciousness we're accumulating in this life that takes us to our next life. So Prabhupada would say here, the living entity in the material world carries different conceptions of life from one body to another, as the air carries aromas. He takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another. The living entity, thus taking another gross body, attains a certain type of ear, eye, tongue, nose, and sense of touch, which are grouped about the mind. He thus enjoys a particular set of sense objects. So we all get a certain machine and a certain set of sense objects which to try to enjoy with. And so our mentality that we have in our previous life, just like the wind, you know, carries the wind is kind of just the wind. But we see when the wind passes over a flower garden, it will carry a very nice smell to it. If it passes over garbage, it'll carry a very nasty smell to it. So in the same way, in this life, if one's cultivating very pious activities, um, doing good things, acting according to Dharma. In their next life, they'll take a higher birth. They'll get very beautiful features. They'll take birth in a nice family. Prabhupada said, you know, generally an aristocratic family. Previously, an aristocratic family meant a family that was very moral, that had good manners and was respectable and things like this, that knew how to behave properly. Nowadays, an aristocratic family just means a family that has a lot of money. So you know, don't be confused. Don't be confused by these things. But yeah, so doing pious activities, it allows you to take this higher birth, even up to the birth of a demigod. And then doing impious activities, then one goes down. Like the air passing over the garbage, it carries this very foul smell to it. So in your next birth, you take this birth that's just very low, very degraded, has this kind of nasty, you know, consciousness to it. And it all depends on our activities. So generally it is said, you know, with this higher birth, you know, these higher births are generally desired by people. They want to be very beautiful. They want to be very opulent. You know, they want to have all these things. But however, that can also be one's downfall and impediments to one. Uh, there's a famous story in Krishna book of Nalakavara and Manigriva. They were the sons of the treasure of the demigods, and they had all this opulence, all this wealth. You can imagine if you're that kind of son, that you have everything at your disposal, and they were so opulent that they were actually able to hang out in like Kailash, you know, Lord Shiva's abode. You know, not everybody gets to go there. If some of you are familiar with Brihat Bhagavatamrita, you see that Gopal Kumar, he had to end up doing several things before he actually got to Lord Shiva's abode. That's a really fascinating story. Ultimately, it leads him all the way up to Vrindavan. But anyway, listening to that story, I could hear that Gopal Kumar, he did all these several things before he reached Lord Shiva's abode. But the sons of Nalakavara and Manigriva, you know, they're able to like enter into that realm of Kailash, and they're sporting in the area which is known as the Mandakini Ganga, the Ganges. And they're with these very beautiful women, because generally if you're a very beautiful man, you attract very beautiful women, type of thing. And Prabhupada says in this story that when you take a birth like this, very beautiful, like very opulent type of birth, you generally become attracted to three things: illicit sex, intoxication, and gambling. You'll see very, very attractive people, or very rich people. They're addicted to these things. If any of you saw any of the reality TV shows in like the early 2000s, you had like the Hiltons, the Kardashians. I never watched them, but I just saw clips of them because my sister was into it, and then I had like roommates that were into it when I was in college. And I think there was a show called Jersey Shore or something like that, way back in the day. You can see like what are their activities. It's illicit sex, intoxication. It's basically like just episodes of illicit sex and intoxication all over again. And then occasionally they would go to a casino. So I was like, wow, Prabhupada is so right with what he's talking about. How one who takes this type of birth becomes addicted to these types of activities. So it's not always, a blessing to have this type of birth. It can actually be one's downfall. But we can see in the case of Nalakuvara and Manigriba, by their good fortune, they ran into Narada Muni. And Narada Muni, seeing that they were in this condition, I mean, they were so drunk that they didn't even bother to cover themselves. They were hanging out completely naked, letting all hang out. And they were so drunk that they didn't even bother to cover themselves when Narada Muni came by. The girls, they weren't quite as intoxicated, so they completely covered themselves. And Narada Muni, though, because he is a great devotee, he had compassion on them. And he said, I had to do something to help them make spiritual advancement. So sometimes it can appear that, to take these very high births, oh, I've got something good. But, when everything's going good, that can be a trap. That can be a trap for one. So in the same way, Narada Muni, he gave them a curse, but that curse was actually a blessing in disguise. Some people think curses are very bad, but curses can be very beneficial to one. And so Narada Muni, he cursed them. So you were hanging out naked like this, so you will stand naked like trees. But they didn't become any ordinary trees. They became the two Arjuna trees in Krishna's pastimes. So later, when Krishna was tied to the grinding mortar by Mother Yashoda, he pulled them down. And then out came these beautiful personalities. And they had learned their lesson by then. So it seemed very bad, but actually in the end it was very good. It was their good fortune. And lucky for them, they ran into Narada Muni and not Durvasa Muni. That would have been that would have not been so good for them, probably. But anyway, the point is, this just shows how, having all these features can sometimes be one's downfall. But the pure devotees of the Lord, really, because they are engaged fully in Krishna consciousness, their natural beauty begins to emerge. And maybe you'll see this when someone comes and they take the Krishna consciousness. At first, they come to the temple and they look a little rough. Maybe they haven't bathed in a little while. They haven't washed their hair in forever. They got some dreads. Haven't brushed it either. They're addicted to intoxicants. And then, they start to take up Krishna consciousness, and little by little they become more beautiful. Have you guys seen that? People become more beautiful by taking up the process of Krishna consciousness. I remember, when I first started taking it up, after about 6 months, somebody came and told me, you're looking really, really effulgent now. Like, so much really, I was like, really? And they're like, yeah, that's what happens when you take this process. And I was really, 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 really fixed. I was like, yeah, your eyes are bluer, your complexion is like clear. And yeah, so these things begin to happen when they take up Krishna consciousness. However, it can also go the other way. You notice for one who's very pious, they have very beautiful features. If they go into degraded life, you can see that they become very ugly. if any of you watched the reality TV show Intervention, back in the day, they used to have this show about drug addicts, and I remember they would show pictures of these people before they got addicted to drugs, and a lot of them would look very beautiful, but when they started engaging in these lower activities, you could see that, they're just facial features, their face was all skinny, they were kind of manty. They look in their eyes, you would see there was like nothing there. It was almost like they were haunted by something. They became really, really ugly. And actually, it is said back in the 1970s and 80s, there was this lady from Colombia, Griselda Blanco. She was known as La Madrina. She was a big cocaine trafficker. Yeah, she was a big cocaine trafficker. So the point that I'm trying to make with this is that when she had first came to the U.S., she had gotten arrested, when she first got into her whole thing. And she got arrested for drug possession or whatever, and then was deported back to Colombia. And then she came back in with falsified papers. And people couldn't recognize her because years of cocaine use at this point had made her appearance, really just nasty and ugly. So this is what happens. When one starts to engage in Krishna consciousness, they become naturally more beautiful, because really Krishna is all attractive. Krishna is all beautiful. So we actually, at our original core, we are also very beautiful beings. A lot of people think, oh, I'm ugly, I'm this and that. Actually, if you're thinking like that, that's tamagun. None of us can actually be anything but really beautiful at our original state, because we are part and parcel of Krishna. And Krishna is all beautiful, all attractive, and things like this. So we have that. That is who we are. And you'll see so many pastimes where people come and they'll take their original form again. It's usually always a very beautiful form. You never see a devotee generally with a very ugly form, unless they have this form for a particular purpose. So like we have trying to think of Vidrasura, demon, things like this. It's actually said there's a pastime Jiro tells a lot. I'm trying to remember the exact details, but it's told in the Hare Krishna Explosion, that book. I believe it was Hayagriva. He went to sleep one time and he had a dream. He saw Prabhupada as a very, very beautiful youth, effulgent personality. And he asked, why haven't you come, like in this form? And he said, because then people would just be attracted to me for my beauty. So generally, by nature, the pure devotees of the Lord, they're all very beautiful, as being described by the features of Prithu Maharaj here. It's very beautiful. We see Sita Devi and Ram Lila. She's very beautiful. That's why she's kidnapped by Ravana, because he wanted to enjoy that beauty. Draupadi, she's also very beautiful. That's why Diona was very envious when Arjuna won her over. And so like this. So that natural beauty comes out more and more as we practice Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada, somebody had said to Prabhupada once, I believe it was a priest, that, your disciples are so effulgent, so bright. And I remember somebody even came and told me once, when I was distributing prasadam at the University of Florida, Prabhupada had originally come to that plaza. So once there was a man that came up to my table. He wanted to buy lunch. And he said, I was here when your spiritual master came here and gave a lecture on this plaza. And I was so amazed at how effulgent he was, how beautiful he was. But I was also very amazed to see how beautiful his disciples were. This guy wasn't a devotee. He said that everybody was just so bright and beautiful looking, and it was almost overwhelming. And they were all chanting this mantra. And that's one of the byproducts of this of practicing this Krishna consciousness. One natural, beautiful spiritual features begin to come out. There's this story, I believe, that I had told when I had given a class at Mantra Oasis about Govardhan Lila, and it was about this Rakshasha and it's a long story, so we don't have time to tell the whole story. But anyway, it's Rakshasa, and he takes birth in the desert because of his previous activities. He had very, very degraded activities in his life before. He had.
I was just very back on board in the desert.
Oh, not Tucson Desert. If he had taken birth in Tucson Desert, he probably would have eaten a goodness. But anyway. In his previous birth, he had, murdered his family members. And so there's a whole story about that. But anyway, so Yamaraj gave him the punishment, all right, you're going to take birth as this Rakshasa in the desert. And so he takes birth like this, and he's very hungry because this is one of those deserts where it's not like Tucson Desert where you can find some plants, some life. You're thinking more like, what is that, Sahara, where there's just like nothing but sand, And so he's looking around for food and can't find food, but he happens to somehow, in his travels, he wanders into India. And he wanders into India, and at the time that he wanders into India, he goes into Vrindavan. And there's this Brahmana that came to Vrindavan on, I think it was Prikrama or something. And this Brahmana is wandering around Govardhan Hill and sees this Rakshasa, and this Rakshasa sees this Brahmana, and this Rakshasa is thinking, all right, I got my next meal. But this Brahmana, he has this Shila of Giriraj Shila. Just like we have a nice little Giriraj Shila on the altar there. And so he takes this Giriraj Shila, he sees this Rakshasa, and he's very afraid. Like, oh my God, he's going to eat me. And he throws the Shila at the Rakshasa, and it hits the Rakshasa. But what happens? This Rakshasa immediately turns into this beautiful, effulgent cowherd boy. Because by being hit by this Govardhan Shila, he became completely purified, and his natural, beautiful features appeared from his body. So Prabhupada says here that whether in human society, animal society, or demigod society, this is proof of transmigration through different types of bodies. So one may have this body or one may have that body in the material world. It all basically depends on, how much money we have in our karmic bank accounts. Like somebody with a lot of money, generally, you'll see they're driving some nice car. People with a little bit of money, you see that they're driving one of those beat up things that has the door duct taped on and is driving around on donuts and has written on the back in Sharpie marker, for sale, $500, something beat up like that, So, but you can think of karma kind of like that, and different bodies kind of like that. If, one has been engaged in very impious activities, they're going to have body like the old beat up car, because that's kind of what they deserve. But if one engages in very pious activities, they're going to have this nicer body. However, you can think of it like a car. The body's like a car, which we try to enjoy. But it takes us from one place to another. But no matter whether you have this body or that body, if one engages in this process of Krishna consciousness, one is actually starting to develop their spiritual body, their eternal body. And that's ultimately what we want. We're not necessarily looking to be like a beautiful Kshatriya or Brahmana, Vaishya, Sudra, whatever. Ultimately, what our desire is and what we want is to have our original body in Krishna's pastimes. And so at the end of the day, whatever body you have, it doesn't matter, because there's no impediment to Krishna consciousness. You can have a dog body and still, that can help. You can make spiritual advancement. Lord Chaitanya liberated Jiva soul and dog body. There's that famous pastime. You can have the body of a Rakshasa and get liberated. It doesn't matter what particular body you have. Krishna makes that statement in Bhagavad Gita. Whether you're of lower birth, whether you're of higher birth, everyone can ultimately attain to him, no matter what it is. Because no matter if it's a lower birth or higher birth, that's not our actual position anyway. That's just the birth that we attain, according to this particular karma game that we're trying to play. Okay, I got this much piety credit. I get this body. Okay, I don't have this much piety. All right, I get this crappy body. But at the end of the day, really, ultimately, when one is engaging in Krishna consciousness, none of this is really important because the gross body, it goes away, and it actually doesn't belong to us anyway. The body itself belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead because it's His energy. So therefore, we can see that pastime of in Chaitanya Lila, where Sanatana Goswami, he has these sores, all over his body, and Lord Chaitanya is wanting to embrace him still. And Sanatana Goswami doesn't want Lord Chaitanya to embrace him because he has these, like, what's called, Prabhupada said, wet rashes all over his body. And so he actually, at one point, he was thinking to commit suicide, Sanatana Goswami. And Lord Chaitanya told him, your body does not belong to you. Your body actually belongs to me. And I have many things that I want to accomplish through your body. And so Lord Chaitanya embraced him. And when Lord Chaitanya embraced him, immediately his sores were healed up. But that's the consciousness that the Vaishnava has. Whether I have this body or that body, ultimately, the body ultimately belongs to Krishna. So you don't think about whether you have, if you're trying to cross an ocean, you don't think about whether you have a very fancy yacht or a speedboat. You're just like, let me get across the ocean. It works. So in this human form of life, whether you got this body or that body, don't think about it so much. Just use it to cross the ocean of material existence and get out of here. Because even if you get this very nicer body in your next life, there's every chance of being like Nalakuvara Manigriva and getting distracted. And you don't want that. Or, taking a lower birth, in a place where they don't have any opportunity to hear about Krishna. You don't want that either. So now, Prabhupada said, now we have the opportunity. So we should use this and get out. Think of it like the storeroom. You don't hang out in the bathroom. You're like, okay, let me just spend some time in the bathroom. No, you do your business in the bathroom and then you leave. So in the material world, it's like that. We come, we should do our business. Okay, I got this human form of life. I can finish my business in this life and go back to Godhead. So let me get my real body. Let me get my actual body, my eternal body that I have in Krishna's pastimes. So this is what one should actually aspire for. But however, and the devotees, when they come, just like Krishna when he comes, they're very beautiful. So for the next few verses, we're going to hear about Raj Prithvi's beauty. But yeah, I think that's kind of like the main point of what Prabhupada's trying to say today. So, Vancha Kalpatri Vishya, Kripa Sindhube Vicha Patisana Pavani Vaishnava. I don't have time to go further into details because Mother Tsunami still wanted me to stop on time, despite the fact that the kirtan ended later. Yes, Prabhu.
No, nice class. Thank you. Want to share that, the devotee's beauty is something that can't be, it's kind of like not quantifiable by our material, visual. What we think is beautiful materially is like, a beautiful girl, or, a beautiful man. Or I remember first time I saw Radhanath Swami. I remember the thought that came to my mind is, this is the most beautiful person I've ever seen.
Oh.
That was the first thing I thought when I looked at Radhanath Swami. That's the most beautiful person I've ever seen in my life. Because I don't know what it was. You just, normal looking person externally, but, something about that energy. And you find that, when someone's really Krishna conscious, they have people all around them all the time. They're very attractive.
Oh, yes.
And, so that's just to share that. And you mentioned the godmother. That was like one of the worst demons ever.
Oh, yeah. Complete Rakshashi. Rakshashi, yeah.
Nobody even know about her. She's like gnarly.
Oh, yeah. Even Pablo Escobar was afraid of her.
Pablo Escobar was like, you're killing too many people.
Yeah. Yeah, but no, it's an example of how when one engages in these activities, they become ugly. Anyway, anything else, guys? Yes.
About so when we chant the Mahamudra, it's such a beautiful mantra that connects our heart.
Mhm.
Our heart becomes beautiful, attracting to Krishna. So that's the beauty that we have. And otherwise, I mean, really, there is no, as when you chant the Maha Mantra and you're connecting with that beauty of Krishna, you just don't see any other beauty around. That is what's so beautiful. And also, we connect with that so deeply that you don't really look at bodies and see them as attractive or unattractive. Seeing people's hearts and connecting to the heart.
That's very true. Actually, I had a friend once that said, I can't figure out devotees' ages
Yeah.
because she said they all look, kind of youthful, kind of beautiful. I can't figure out how old some of them are. That's true. So yeah, that's what happens when you're connecting with the Maha Mantra. All right, guys. All right, it's 45. I think I don't want anyone to miss breakfast. So Hare Krishna, Gantara Shima Bhavatam Ki. Jai.
Yeah,